LeBron James entered the NBA with expectations that stretched far beyond superstardom. People were already talking about a future GOAT case. By 2014, that possibility looked more realistic than ever. He had just led his teams to 4 straight NBA finals, already owned 2 championship rings, and was playing with a roster that fit his style perfectly. The formula was clear. Build around LeBron, and you had a real shot at winning it all. In many ways, he had become the same kind of franchise-defining blueprint that Michael Jordan once was. From there, the finals kept coming, year after year. It seemed like the stage was set for a dynasty that could pile up titles and strengthen his claim as the greatest ever. In many ways, he had become the same kind of franchise-defining blueprint that Michael Jordan once was. From there, the finals kept coming, year after year. It seemed like the stage was set for a dynasty that could pile up titles and strengthen his claim as the greatest ever. In another version of the story, those appearances might have stacked up into 6 championships and sealed the debate. But one player changed the trajectory of that timeline: Stephen Curry. What unfolded next wasn't just a rivalry between 2 superstars, it was a turning point that disrupted the path many believed LeBron was on. And unless we really understand how that moment shifted the landscape, it's hard to grasp what it means for the ongoing GOAT debate. Years ago, the unwritten rule for becoming the greatest was simple: bring a championship to the team that drafted you, no matter how tough the road was. Michael Jordan followed that script. Fine, before finally overcoming the Detroit Pistons' bad boys, he had to endure several painful playoff defeats at their hands. LeBron was expected to follow a similar journey in Cleveland. That's part of why his decision to leave the Cavaliers hit fans so hard. For many, it felt like the story wasn't finished yet.
LeBron can never come back. He's one of our own. He's from Akron. He has a tattoo of loyalty on his body. And he ignored that to go chase the championship with Chris Bosh in Miami.
LeBron's move away from Cleveland initially put a dent in how people viewed his GOAT argument. Still, it wasn't something that couldn't be fixed. By the time 2014 rolled around, he already owned 2 championship rings. When he returned to the Cavaliers, the setup looked ideal. And Kyrie Irving was blossoming into a superstar, and Kevin Love had arrived as an all-NBA level scorer. The mission seemed simple: deliver a title to Cleveland and continue stacking championships. But then Stephen Curry entered the picture and flipped the entire storyline. Curry and the Golden State Warriors rose right when LeBron was trying to complete that redemption arc. Over the next 4 years, LeBron reached the NBA Finals every single season. During that stretch, he captured the championship that he later said cemented his place as the greatest player ever. That one right there made me the greatest player of all time. It was a powerful moment, and the 2016 Finals will always stand as one of the most iconic victories in basketball history. But when you step back and look at the full picture, the rest of those matchups tell a tougher story. Against Golden State in 4 consecutive finals meetings, LeBron and the Cavaliers managed to win just 1 championship, and numbers can frame legacies in very different ways. A finals record of 7-3 sounds a lot different than 4-6, but when fans debate the greatest of all time, they don't just stare at the stats. They look at the narrative surrounding those numbers. They examine how a player responds when the path to greatness gets blocked. Michael Jordan experienced that kind of resistance before his dynasty ever began. For 3 straight seasons, 1988, 1989, and 1990, the Detroit Pistons and their bad boys shut the door on him in the playoffs. During that same stretch, Jordan was already dominating the league. He won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, proving he was the most complete player on the court. Yet none of that quieted the criticism. And that's exactly why so many from the older generation still point to MJ as the GOAT. It wasn't just the championships, it was the persistence. The way he kept pushing forward until he finally broke through the wall.
Right there made me the greatest player of all time. And then after I stopped, I was like, that one right there made you the greatest player of all time.
Seeing the relentless beating Michael Jordan took on the court only strengthened Charles Barkley's stance. After witnessing it firsthand, he stood even more firmly behind his opinion.
LeBron's amazing and spectacular, but I was like, Michael didn't join anybody. He just kept getting his ass kicked and got bigger and got stronger and finally knocked the wall down.
Now compare that to LeBron James. In 2010, he made the decision to leave Cleveland. At the time, it didn't sit well with a lot of people, but it was somewhat understandable. He was still young, chasing bigger opportunities, and trying to make the most of his prime years. But then, in 2014, following a clear finals defeat, he chose to move on once again.
Back and watch that last dance. Seeing what the Pistons did to him, trying to physically whoop the hell out of him, and him not complaining, just getting bigger and stronger. I'm like, damn, this guy was the greatest, in my opinion.
This time, he went back to Cleveland, where the roster had suddenly become far more appealing. Then in 2018, after another trip to the finals ended in defeat, LeBron made another move, this time heading to Los Angeles. None of these decisions take away from his incredible career. His greatness is undeniable, but when people stack his story next to Stephen Curry's, the comparison starts to shift for some fans. Through injuries, setbacks, and roster changes, Isaac Curry stayed in the Bay Area and kept pushing forward with the same franchise. In 2021, the Warriors fell short of the playoffs after losing in the play-in tournament. For many teams, that kind of setback signals the start of a long rebuild, but Curry weathered the reset. 1 year later, in 2022, he returned stronger than ever, leading Golden State back to the top and capturing another championship along with the Finals MVP. When people build a GOAT argument, narratives like that tend to carry serious weight. And there's another measuring stick that often enters the conversation: influence. LeBron's impact on the league is massive, no question, but when it comes to the kind of cultural and on-court ripple effect Curry has created, it's something the basketball world had rarely seen before.
You don't just leave an abandoned ship and then get the band of merry men to start up again. You don't do that. You created this monster that was called the Miami Heatles. Now you gotta finish it up.
Head coach Steve Kerr put it in the simplest terms possible.
Quel tifo pour symboliser les 3 points, je suppose, oui.
Before Stephen Curry arrived, launching a pull-up 3 from 30 feet was usually seen as a reckless heat check. After Curry, it turned into a legitimate part of offensive game plans. Before him, floor spacing was simply a helpful advantage. Once he changed the game, spacing became essential, like air for a modern offense. In the years following his rise, three-point attempts across the league skyrocketed. Teams didn't just adjust slightly, they rebuilt entire offensive philosophies around the type of floor geometry Curry made normal. His influence has been so massive that even people far outside professional basketball can easily see the difference.
How the game has changed. I think Steph has changed the game dramatically with the shooting. I mean, for all the reasons we know. I don't know that LeBron has changed the game as much as Steph.
And according to Dwyane Wade, the ripple effect of Stephen Curry's influence isn't fading anytime soon. He believes the basketball world will still be experiencing it for many years ahead.
Steph is the most impactful player of this generation. I know for a long time we said it was LeBron. No shot at LeBron. What Steph is doing is just phenomenal.
The reality is that LeBron's influence has always been tied to the understanding that he's a once-in-a-generation physical talent. His size, strength, and athleticism make it clear he was built differently. Stephen Curry's impact, however, feels different, and in many ways even more remarkable, because he doesn't rely on overwhelming physical traits. There's nothing about his frame that immediately screams superhuman. That's exactly why so many people look at his game and think it's something they could replicate. The deep threes, the quick release, the endless movement, it all appears reachable. But the truth is, what Curry does is far harder than it looks, and very few can actually come close to doing it.
We're going to be able to experience it way further down the line.
Yeah.
His impact on not only the game of basketball, which we know right now his impact on that, but the culture. Once again, we talk about Mount Rushmore or GOATs or people who have changed the game. Like, you would never be able to mention a conversation without Steph.
Everyone agrees that the 1990s NBA carried Michael Jordan's imprint. The entire era reflected his style, dominance, and mentality. But if that's the case, why is it so difficult for people to admit that today's version of basketball bears the signature of Stephen Curry more than anyone else, including LeBron James?
Game changed when we allowed people to think you can win championships doing what Steph Curry did. The problem isn't that Steph Curry win championships like that. The problem is you think you Steph Curry. You don't shoot like Steph Curry. You ain't been shooting like Steph Curry.
There's no denying that LeBron has put together one of the most overwhelming statistical resumes the league has ever seen. He's the NBA's all-time leading scorer, the first player to cross the 40,000 point mark, and a member of the incredibly rare 10,000 rebounds and 10,000 assists club. On paper, those achievements feel almost impossible to match, but when you revisit some of the nights where those milestones were reached, a strange trend appears. Plus, several of LeBron's historic moments happened during games his team ultimately lost. The night he passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the scoring record ended in defeat. The same was true when he became the first player ever to reach 30,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, and 10,000 assists. Meanwhile, many of Stephen Curry's defining moments have come in victories. Of course, that contrast doesn't diminish LeBron's legacy. His accomplishments are extraordinary, but the conversation here isn't simply about greatness. It's about the greatest of all time, the player who becomes the ultimate benchmark for the sport. And for some critics, LeBron's journey has always come with lingering questions. Whether it's the circumstances surrounding certain championships or the timing of major milestones, there's often been a debate attached to the moment. Curry's path has unfolded differently. Time after time, he's answered doubts head on. Early in his career, injuries led many to believe his time in the league might be short. He proved that wrong. Later, skeptics claimed he couldn't win another title without Kevin Durant, until he led the Warriors back to the top and captured a Finals MVP. Even on the international stage, Curry has repeatedly delivered when the spotlight was brightest. For years, the GOAT debate has been framed as a two-man argument between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Yet in the background, one player has continually influenced the outcome of that conversation. Without Stephen Curry, the Warriors dynasty that challenged LeBron's dominance never exists. Curry didn't need to eclipse LeBron in total points or career numbers to shift the conversation. Instead, he made his mark where it mattered most, winning key battles, revolutionizing how offense is played, and inspiring an entire generation of players. LeBron's greatness is undeniable, and his longevity may never be matched. But Curry's impact has been transformative, and if that's the case, then maybe the real discussion isn't whether Stephen Curry deserves a place in the GOAT conversation. It's how high he truly ranks. So where do you think Steph Curry belongs on the all-time list? Let us know in the comments. And if you want another reminder of just how special he is, check out the one Steph Curry record that might never be broken.